Hello there, and a huge welcome to today's episode of Gina Gardiner and Friends. I'm always thrilled to meet guests, but actually I'm very, very thrilled to be able to introduce my mentor to you, Majesty-Almighty AliNICOLE WOW. I've worked with her now for a number of years, and she's been really instrumental, certainly in terms of me being a prolific writer. I've written a few books before, but with AliNICOLE's help, I've written many books and many more products. She's an amazing lady. She's the ultimate multi-hyphenate all-trades authority who leverages, depending on which side of the Atlantic you live, her life as a niche. AliNICOLE, a huge welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much, Gina. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
So just give people a flavour of the sort of things that you do and that you offer.
Oh, absolutely. And so that's a multitude of things. I'm a multi-mission majestypreneur, and I'm cross-trained in over 200 areas. And you mentioned about the publishing aspect and how I was instrumental with that. And I have my background, published author of over 300 works, and I've created different levels of industry-focused platforms, over 1,000 that are online under my While She Does It All brand expression.
Now we're going to be talking about owning your true all authentic brand expression.
Mhm.
And I think authenticity for me is one of the things that when you look around the world at the moment seems to be hugely lacking.
Yeah.
Why do you think authenticity is so important? And I'm also interested in why your wording is all authentic.
Absolutely. Well, authenticity is extremely important because it reflects the true nature of who we are supposed to be. And of course, you being the genuinely you authority that you are, you know that it's extremely important that we show up in a way that is in integrity with who we've come here to be. And so if we're being something other than authentic and true to who we are, then we aren't really demonstrating a true reflection of what we've come here to be. Now, you mentioned about the authenticity aspect, the authentic aspect is when you are bringing the fullness of who you are to the world. And though we have our collective embodiment in terms of, I would say, categories of how we show up, but when we don't actually show up for individuals to know that there's more to us than what they see, that too is not a full representation. So when we bring the allness of who we are, that's an authentic expression. Now, Gina, does that mean that every category of who we are is always constantly present with individuals that they see those different aspects? No, not necessarily, because they won't necessarily need to, but there's something about who we are that is bringing the fullness of us that we can gravitate different people from different walks of life, different other authentic expressions that can come into their allness just by being around us.
I think, one of the things that strikes me is that we live in a world where people very often are presenting themselves how they think others feel they should be,
Right, right.
rather than being able to step in and own who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I think that when we fail to be authentic to the very best version of ourselves, that starts to bring about a sense of dis-ease, which
Right.
ultimately leads to people being emotionally, physically, spiritually, um,
Just
out of thought,
disconnected.
a disconnect, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got lots of listeners here
Yeah.
who may find it really difficult to know who they are when they're being
Mm-hmm.
all authentic. What advice would you give them?
Well, for one, in terms of just going back to what you asked earlier, in terms of, I'm going to expound a little bit more upon authenticity. And as I mentioned, it's not so much about everyone seeing all these different versions of you. It's just that, are you able to step into those different functionalities as experiences come to you? Can you just be in your way of beingness? When people don't actually know who they are, and can't own that truth of who they are, then they'll do exactly what you mentioned in terms of they want to operate according to a society structure or what they think people see them as. They aren't really showing up in their truth. But when you get into like the embodiment of this, and that's something that we can, expound upon if you would like, the embodiment kind of breaks down the different levels and layers of how we need to show up, and especially when we're a brand and we're in business.
So I think for many people listening to this, one of the challenges, I believe, is that they are limited by the need to compare themselves with other people. And so instead of standing in their truth, taking radical responsibility for who they are and what they're doing, they look to fit in with what everybody else is doing.
Right. The
And
sea of sameness.
they become a lemming rather than a leader.
That was well stated. You are absolutely right. And that is why, for me, I've been someone who defies all of that. And the allness in who I am in terms of my all authority is that when people come to know me, no matter what level they meet me on in terms of what a focus is for them, they understand that I represent the allness of who I am. So I'm able to be cross-functional in my approach and step into whatever role I need to, that's the fullness of me, even though it may be just one or two categories that they need to identify with. So in terms of when individuals feel limited and constricted to doing things the same, that's why I leverage my entire life as a niche, because it doesn't limit me to this is my signature focus or the core focus I have to show up in. For me, it is what is my mission in the moment. So I'm able to shift into and I don't even honestly like to say shift into anything because it is just my way of being. It's just that level of my truth comes out at that time. But I'm not afraid to be the allness. And as you know, Gina, in a marketplace that has really confined individuals to being about one niche focus and having a brand identity around one core, focus or so, that is the biggest detriment to individuals who are here to be an expression of more expansiveness, if that makes sense.
I think we are told, and certainly many of the gurus, particularly branding and marketing gurus, are very, very strongly advise that you should have one niche and that you should niche your business down. But I think one of the challenges with that is that so many people have great expertise and experience and talent in many areas.
Right.
And in closing themselves down, they lose potential opportunities. The economic landscape is challenging for people at the moment. And if you have a business and you want your business to thrive, it's really important that you feel well resourced. So, AliNicole, what can you say to people who have a business in terms of how they can use their authenticity to help their business take it to the next level?
Oh, absolutely. And I want to preface this and go back to what you said. You said the key word about the landscape changing in terms of the economy. And one of my signature embodiments is lifeonomics. And so when you're leveraging your life as an economy, you can pull from different areas of not just your signature expertise, so to speak, but different areas of your life that you can begin to produce, whether it's content or products for different individuals that are in those specific groups, and be able to step outside of what you normally do and then start to share your wealth of knowledge and whatever you provide. That's a way that people can make an impact and an income. It's in a very unconventional way, but we are in an era where you're really going to have to go from innovation to innovation on a completely different level. And Gina, that really starts with changing the landscape within so that the external landscape in terms of an economy can shift individually and then collectively.
So what does that actually mean in real terms for the person on the street?
Yeah, so what that means is, which I'm glad that you asked that, because it's about a normal way of beingness, okay? And so if you are just living your life and your life is your niche, then you aren't confined to the average person who will align with you, who maybe has a question about something, and maybe in a certain area, you're the 1 or 2 steps ahead expert, and it's not your signature area, but you can still be able to provide some level of empowerment or something that gives them food for thought that then sends them on their way to have a better life. Now, what does that mean in terms of you being able to make an impact and an income? Well, Gina, you know that being able to produce different levels of products and publications in their simplest formats are things that can be easily produced quickly. And then when people have what I call these divine rendezvous, then they can be able to point people in the direction of something that can change their lives. And that's part of their economy that's flowing from them to make that impact and income, if that makes sense.
It does. And one of the things that, to share with our listeners that has you've helped me with is prior to our working together, I had written a number of books, and they were
Right.
conventional style books, 80 to 100,000 words,
Mhm.
either on leadership or on personal development. But one of the things that's happened since I've worked with you is recognizing that different elements of my life are actually of value to other people, that you can help people navigate their life and avoid the pitfalls by
Right.
sharing your experience. Not to say that this is the way to do it, but this is how I've done it. And there may be things within that that would be useful to you. So just some examples are writing works around working with empaths, which is something that I hadn't thought of until we were involved. I was just facilitating something with you.
Right. Right.
Um, around health, around spirituality, around
Mhm.
just recognizing that your life is multifaceted. And
Absolutely.
one example of somebody else's book is they'd been through a very messy divorce, and they wrote a book about all of the things that they wish they'd known
Hmm.
before they started, because it would have saved them a lot of heartache, a lot of time and energy, and a lot of money.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought this up because, it's kind of a perfect segue to start talking more about bringing the fullness of oneself to the table and leveraging your personal, professional, educational, and spiritual development or evolution, however you want to term that for yourself, and looking at your life in these different categories. And just like what Gina was mentioning, whether you're an empath, whether you have these different areas of life that you've been through, things that you do have strengths in. Gina, I like to look at things in categories of being the 1 or 2 steps ahead expert, then being kind of an intermediate type of authority, and then your areas of high level expertise. But you have something to offer, something of value to the individual who does not know what you know. So going back to not looking at just flowing from what you think are your signature areas of expertise, is that if you've been someone who's been taking care of yourself, or maybe you're starting a new well-being journey, you can simply create some type of publication around that. It could be an action planner or a playbook or so, or just a journal. And that's how you can actually serve that level of an industry just based on your experience of just creating a sacred space for individuals. So you don't have to look at everything that you do as being something, oh, I have to have a degree or a certification. You're just leveraging different levels of your life. If you have a hobby, you can create publications and products around that hobby. So it's really going outside of the norms in a sense. You get that, Gina, of course.
And one of the interesting things for me is that through the very process of writing, that you actually learn and grow yourself, you evolve, because it makes you question, why did I do that? Or
Mhm.
how does that work? And by going through the process of creating a publication or a product, you grow and evolve too. So it's so multi-leveled. And I think
Yes,
many people listening to this may think, well, I've got a book in me, and it may be about, collecting your family history,
that's right.
so that for future generations that's there, and there'll be lessons within that that will be useful to other families. So this can
Mhm.
be done at many, many levels. And I would suggest that, if you're interested to have a look at how this can be done, go and have a look at Ali Nicole's website, or author page on Amazon, and go and have a look at mine, and you'll see a whole variety of different publications.
Mhm.
We're talking about the capacity to own your a true, authentic brand expression. And one of the things that I think has been really powerful for me is the recognition that evolution is about not only being a better version of you, but actually becoming a somewhat different version of you. And you have a very great way of explaining that. I wonder if you'd share that with us.
Oh, absolutely. So metaphorically, I love to leverage the process of the caterpillar, what I call evolving into a butterfly. And often we hear it taught from a transformational perspective, and transformation and growth is in that process. But from a human butterfly perspective, it is really an evolutionary process of becoming something that's different, a new creation, because that's what a caterpillar does. It doesn't become a bigger caterpillar. It breaks down and it starts to shed away an old identity so that it can now take on a new embodiment and be recoded into this new expression. So what does this mean for individuals who are brands and they're in business, so to speak, is that you have to be able to see yourself in a multi-dimensional way. That's part of your new creation format, if you will, in terms of business, or just your mission. And that's going to allow you to be multifaceted. It's going to allow you to showcase these different levels of who you've come to be. And Gina, the reason why that's so important is because the constriction and the confinement is people not being able to really own their truth, not being able to evolve, not just with the marketplace, but evolve themselves into being more than what a framework or a template, has told them to be. So if you don't mind, can we talk a little bit before wrapping up? Can we talk a little bit about really the true ownership of the authentic brand expression and kind of what that entails?
Absolutely, go for it.
All right. Now, was there anything else that you wanted me to expound upon in terms of the evolution with the transformation, evolutionary aspect of the caterpillar to the butterfly? I want to make sure that I
I
answer
suppose
what.
the thing that I would add to that
Mhm.
is that there are many people who think that being just a better doing things better within the context of where they are is going to be enough. And I would suggest that ultimately we are moving into a completely different landscape. And
Absolutely.
whilst doing things better, harder, more frequently may in the short term bring you greater success, I think all of us have got to be so flexible and able to really expand and shift what we do, because the thinking that got us to this place is not going to be the thinking that gets us out of it. And ultimately, we're going to have to do things very differently. So it's not about more of the same. It's about how can we operate in a different way that will take us into the next level and the next level and the next level.
Absolutely. And that's what true metamorphosis does, is it allows us to be malleable. It allows us to come unformed and then reform into what we need to be, morphing, if you will, into what we need to be in the moment.
Yeah.
And we're not here to be a new and improved version. That's what the marketplace and the world at large has been giving to us for so long, these different templates. And if we don't become a new creation versus a new and improved version of something, then ultimately things are going to stay the same, and that just can't be. And that's why the breakdown is happening, so that individuals can come into this true expression, and that is to do multiple things. I mean, that's really what people have been crying and longing for, is to be able to have a multifaceted expression, but the confinement of the templates are saying, no, you can't do that, or you have to do this one signature thing and then come and do, you can start adding other things. That typically doesn't work. You typically out the gate need to be the embodiment of the fullness of who you are. So I'll get into that, Gina, and kind of talk through that quickly, and then we can have dialogue around that before closing out. So should I jump into that?
Yes, do.
Okay. Well, well, in terms of the ownership aspect, I want everyone to imagine that they are this affluent embodiment. And affluent is being holistic. It's not just about luxury and money. It is the full embodiment of your truth, which is a high level, authentic expression. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment on a different level. But the ownership is you, it's your opulent, wealthy now way of brand beingness. So when you step into the marketplace, you don't have to necessarily tell people that you do all these things, but what it is what you're giving off does represent someone who's able to step into these different functionalities. So Gina, if you're bringing the fullness of who you are to the table and you're owning that, you can't help but be opulent and wealthy, right?
Ultimately, I think that by being the biggest version of ourselves, that you open the doors to so many possibilities, that being having an abundance within your life is
Absolutely. Because you are that. You are abundance. And it's interesting because my first publication was called Abundance. You Are It, Inner Game Mastery for Emerging Leaders. And so we are the embodiment of that. So within the authentic expression, I have what I call the Trinity of affluent authenticity. And it's basically for brand and empire embodiment. And so in terms of the shifting and changing, like what you mentioned, the economic landscape, and then not being able to get caught up in the sea of sameness that we see out there in the marketplace. Three levels of embodiment that I take on and teach from is that you first have to embody a multi-mission entrepreneurial brand expression. And a brand expression is different than just a traditional brand. It's you being able to express different levels of who you are and not be confined to just being boxed in. So basically, Gina, in a nutshell, people have to understand that you're here for more than just one purpose and calling. And being in a state of awareness of never being boxed into one brand identity or just using one signature level of your gift. You're here to be more than that. The third one, or second one, I should say, is the embodying the total empire of you. You have to see yourself as an empire because this allows you to operate from a holistic empire state of mind and beingness as a brand and as a business. So this is key because you don't want to cut yourself off by just confining yourself to just a singular focus, so to speak. And then the last one, Gina, the third one is embodying your authentic new high-end, what I call multi-trades wow factor, and that reflects your wealthy, opulent works. And this is what you display in the marketplace. So these embodiments are key because you can't really move forward in being the allness of who you are if it's not embodied as a way of being. And that's something I've been able to do throughout the years is I'm the walking, living truth of that embodiment because that's why I'm Majesty Almighty, because I bring my allness to the table in a very unique and divine way, but it is the embodiment of all of what I mentioned.
I'm afraid we've run out of time. So where can people find you? If they want to find out more, find your resources, where can they go and look?
They can go to wowshedoesitall.com and alinicolewow.com.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So it just remains for me to say a huge thank you, AliNicole, for being on the show. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye now.